I would like to apologize to my family.
Did you know over 350,000 students have experienced gun violence at school since 1999? To our surprise, 2022 was the deadliest year of all. Devoid of empathy, these school shooters roam freely, whereas schools run in fear. Nevertheless, very few exist who run freely today, and most face the darkness of prison. Today, we bring you the top 4 reactions of school shooters who got the cruelest sentences. Stay till the end to watch. At number 4, we have the Parkland Massacre. The gunman responsible for the Parkland Massacre was given a life sentence and was described as a monster by the relatives of the victims. The Florida high school massacre in 2018 resulted in the gunman who killed 17 people receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole on Wednesday. Circuit Judge Elizabeth Scherer had no choice but to impose the death sentence, since the jury in the capital punishment case could not agree by a majority that Nicholas Cruz deserved to die. Family members of the victims and shooting survivors were given the opportunity to address the court before the gunman officially got his sentence for the Valentine's Day massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in the suburban Fort Lauderdale area. The shooter, bound, wearing a scarlet prison jumpsuit, stared blankly at the speakers as he did the day before. He removed the face mask after learning that Jamie Guttenberg's mother, Jennifer Guttenberg, advised against doing so. "When the families are sitting here talking to you," Guttenberg said, "it's demeaning to be lowering down in your seat, slumped over, and trying to make yourself appear innocent when you are not." Teacher Stacy Lipple, who was hurt in the incident, said to the shooter, "The idea that you, a cold-blooded killer, can actually live each day, eat your meals, and put your head down at night seems completely unjust. The only consolation I can offer is that your time in jail will be spent in terror and fear. Thus, my wish for you is that you pass away as quickly as possible." The speakers moved to a podium about 20 feet from the 24-year-old shooter, looked him in the eye, and vented their rage and sorrow. Numerous people also criticised a Florida rule that mandates jury unanimity in order to deliver a death sentence. On October 13, the jury voted 9-3 in favour of execution. Megan Petty stated he has evaded his penalty because a minority of the jury was given the authority to reverse the majority decision reached by people who were able to recognise him for what he is, a remorseless monster who deserves no pity. She lost her younger sister, Elena, 14, when the shooter killed her in her classroom with an AR-15 style semi-automatic weapon while stalking the 3-story building's hallways for 7 minutes and firing 140 rounds. For 7 months, he had been preparing to shoot. In order to want to hurt another person, one must be a very sick person. It was even sicker to think about the desire, devise a plan, and then do something so heinous as to carry out that plan, which not only caused harm, but also took lives, she added. Even worse, he was so self-centered that he planned a disguise while my sister was dying on a dirty classroom floor, thinking he could get away with murder. At number 3, we have Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. The case of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who murdered 13 people and wounded 21 others before taking their own lives at Colorado's Columbine High School, was known to be the most remembered. They were never tried or punished because they committed suicide. However, it was discovered after they were killed that they were fascinated by violence and had been plotting the attack for more than a year. We can only infer Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold's opinions from their own words and deeds prior to the attack because they were never trialed or sentenced for their actions at Columbine High School. It is evident from their diaries and videos that they were deeply fascinated by violence and that they wanted to commit a mass shooting. They wrote a lot about how they hated society and how they wanted to get even with those who they believed had wronged them. Additionally, they expressed their admiration for other mass murderers and their desire to outdo them in terms of fatalities. They even joked about going on a shooting rampage and talked about how they would organise and execute the attack in one of their videos. They didn't seem to care about the repercussions or the harm they would cause to innocent people. Instead, they seemed to enjoy the idea of wreaking havoc and ruin. Overall, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris had distorted and skewed perspectives on what they did, and they had no sympathy whatsoever for the victims or their families. Their actions at Columbine High School served as a devastating wake-up call on the peril of unchecked hatred, as well as the necessity of improved mental health services and gun control regulations. Next up, at number 2, we have David Hogg. Yet another shocking incident that left everyone silent was of David Hogg on the movement against gun violence 5 years after Parkland. In the words of David Hogg, it feels like a lifetime has passed. On February 14, 2018, a 19-year-old gunman opened fire on Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, as Hogg, then 17, and other terrified students took cover in classrooms and closets. "I was really scared," Hogg admitted, "and I kind of felt like the adrenaline had rushed down my spine, but I instantly heard my father's voice saying, 'If anything ever happens, you have to stay calm,' in the back of my mind." So locked down with other kids, Hogg started making videos in case they didn't survive. As he heard more gunshots, he concluded that this was not a drill, that had come up to him and say, "My generation really screwed up, but we are delighted that your kids are here to repair it," and just pretending like they had no involvement in that. Hogg 100% believed in it, and he thought that it was consistently one of the most irritating and insulting things they encounter about people approaching him and saying, "My generation really screwed up, but we're glad that your kids are here to fix it," while simultaneously acting as though they had no part in that. Hold on to your seats because the next person will give you chills. At number 1, we have Nikolas Cruz. Nikolas Cruz killed 17 people in a Parkland shooting after a life sentence. The Florida Senate approved a quicker method of inflicting the death penalty the Parkland school shooter received, in response to the life sentence given to the guy who murdered 17 people at a Parkland high school. The Florida Senate on Thursday passed a bill eliminating a rule requiring a unanimous jury recommendation for the death penalty. The death penalty will be permitted with a jury recommendation of at least 8-4 in favour of execution under the law, which passed on a 29-10 majority. The bill still requires House approval. Ron DeSantis, a Republican governor, is in favour of the idea. The legislation was introduced in response to a jury's decision in November to spare Nikolas Cruz, the shooter who killed 17 people at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. The death penalty. The jury was split 9-3. The Parkland school shooter, in contrast, received a life sentence. Parkland's events were horrifying. The Parkland tragedy, according to Republican Senator Blaise Ingoglia, the bill's sponsor, will forever stay in this state. Not just the residents of Parkland and Florida, but also individuals all around the United States of America were startled by the verdict. When the state Supreme Court ruled that jury recommendations should be unanimous, the state legislature approved a statute requiring a unanimous jury. The state legislature then passed a statute requiring a 10-2 jury recommendation. A death recommendation does not need to be unanimous. The state Supreme Court ruled 3 years later after DeSantis approved a new conservative justices to the court. Florida's unanimity standard has remained untouched until now. Jason Pizzo, a Democrat who voted in favour of the measure, cautioned senators against endorsing it because of a single case, even if they shared his opinion that Cruz should get the death penalty. He declared, "This deliberate body can't just react to one specific horrific case right away. Let's just be intellectually honest about why we are doing it. If that verdict hadn't occurred, we wouldn't have this bill. I can make a case for either side." If you found this video interesting, hit the like button so the YouTube algorithm knows that the video is helpful to a lot of people. And subscribe to the channel for more such videos.